Hey, welcome back. I'm Tim Washer, and today we are meeting with Joe Pulizzi, content manager of Penton Media. Wait, this is who?
That's old.
I think the bio's old. We have an old bio on you. Are you still at Penton? I apologize.
That was 20 years ago.
20 years ago to the day.
20 years ago, almost.
Let me tell you this, sir. Law number 7 is just say no, and you should have taken your own advice when you said yes to this interview. Okay, because this is going to be a big mistake for you.
We did this last year, if I remember correctly, and I remember how horrible of an experience it was. But you know how time goes when something really bad happens to you, and then there's time, and you forget how bad it was. But then here I am.
Here you are, feeling the pain all over again. And 10 minutes is going to seem like 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen.
It already feels like 2 hours, actually.
I want to dig into the rumors first. Is it true that you and Pam are now living off of a 1,200-foot yacht off the coast of Cyprus?
Oh, no, we actually bought a tiny house.
A tiny house?
It's a sub tiny house because it's kind of half of a tiny house. We're really going with the whole minimalistic thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but to do that, we didn't know where to put our 2 kids who are junior and senior now, so basically they're outside camping all the time. But we thought it was a great experience for them.
Yes, and they're going to think it's a great experience until one of them's eaten by a bear. Okay, but let's not worry about that. Look, I want to get into something you said in your keynote last year.
Yes.
Okay. You said, when Mike kisses you, he's not doing anything else.
Oh, you remember that?
I do remember that.
Yes, exactly.
And I want to dig into that. Was that an Orson Welles book? I think that book's on sale now.
That was from Stranger in a Strange Land, Robert Heinlein. My favorite book. You knew this, right?
Yes.
Stranger in a Strange Land. I totally recommend it. There's a portion in the book, because the whole idea was talking about focus and how if we really want to do great things, we have to be focused. And I unfortunately picked out the section of the book where Mike, the main character, was kissing somebody else, and
it came back to
I didn't think it was going to go that way on stage when I'm talking, kissing Mike, but
I was thinking of you and Michael Landon at the time.
Who cares anymore? It's all good. Everything's good.
Let's accept each other.
That's it.
Where they are.
Exactly. Where they are. I accept you.
And we'll see how the interview goes before I make a commitment on acceptance. So, this new keynote, love that.
Did you watch it?
Yes.
Did you like it? That's the first time I've given that keynote ever.
Pam told me that.
Yeah.
Pam told me it was the first one. The first time to do that. And I love it. And I loved, actually, Jenny Dietrich was here earlier this morning. And we talked about this idea of look, you need to focus on the stuff you do really well, and then kill off the stuff you're just. And also we talked about too, the challenges you have of getting all these requests of, hey, let's do a podcast. We need a new campaign.
We need to do everything.
So how are you? Look, this stuff needs to be. I mean, everybody needs to get on board with this.
Well, we've been doing this for a long time. It's so tempting because we can do all these things. Yeah. Oh, let's do a podcast, let's do a video series, let's do an e-newsletter, a blog, be on every social channel. There was a time, 7-8 years ago, we had to be on every social channel. And then we were like, oh, no, we don't. But we stayed on all those channels. We kept doing all that stuff. And you're getting requests from the entire company to create content on every channel. But people don't realize that is just the path to failure. It never, if you look at all the great, not only media brands, but let's just look at the best content marketing examples that have ever been. They've all, when you go from Red Bull down, they all started by doing one thing really well.
Yeah.
We do a magazine, we do a podcast, and then you build that audience. And then once you build that loyal audience, then you can start to diversify. And I grew up in publishing media. And you think, oh, okay, well, there's a publishing brand, and they have all these events, and they have podcasts, and they have a magazine, and whatever. And you think that they just started that way. None of them did. They all started by doing one thing really well, build the audience, and then once the audience accepts you and they're loyal, then they'll start to engage in other things. Nobody does this. Everybody says, oh, we got to do all of it at the same time, and I feel bad. And I know how tough it is to say no. But we absolutely have to stop just wasting everyone's time with this content that nobody's paying attention to, that we're hooking our job onto, and it's just sad.
So what's your plan? How are we going to change things with this?
How am I going to change people from doing
with this message? How are you getting this out there?
Well, I've written 5 books, and I've mentioned it in every one, and Robert and I do a podcast. I've got an e-newsletter out there, and nobody pays attention to it, obviously. Nobody's reading the books, because people are, and I know why, because somebody asks you, the chief marketing officer or VP of sales says, can you do this? And we can. It's not that we can't, we shouldn't.
Right.
And we don't want to say no. Because we feel that our job is in jeopardy, and it might be, and that's the problem, and that's why we have to educate them and say, look, you're going to ask me to do this video series that tags along with the podcast, but it's going to fail, and here's why. You don't know that because you're not in content marketing.
Right. And that's what you're talking about, just the need is in internal communications.
Yeah.
Really trying to get the suits who are coming down with these
before
requests.
Everything.
Yeah.
If you talk to most of the people that are here at Content Marketing World, I would say the majority don't have internal content programs for their own sake, and they all have to, because I've seen, I don't know how many big brands I've been into that are doing fantastically well. They're building an audience, everything's working, they're down the right path, and then, all of a sudden, the whole program's done. Well, why is that? We're getting results. Sorry, somebody who just joined, some CMO who has to change everything, didn't know what you were doing, and now it's gone. It became an ad program. Sorry, you're done.
Right. You got to get the word out. Look, the podcast, you and Robert are back.
We are.
I remember we recorded one in Sydney, Australia, a few years back.
That's right.
You remember that? Over probably a few too many glasses of wine.
You were one of the few people that have actually been on that podcast.
That was a fun time, man. That was a fun time.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was our worst episode ever. But it was fun.
Thank you.
Because I've learned, and you have to learn the hard way sometimes. I learned that you're not supposed to drink before you do a podcast.
Yes, or during.
But I do remember we had a great time that night.
Look, the three of us had fun. And who cares about the audience? The audience is dead. That's our point here at Content Marketing World. If you leave 2019 with one thought.
That's exactly right.
That's what is start drinking during your podcast.
Yeah, alcohol
That's from Joe.
is the key to everything, I guess.
Hey, tell me about what's going on with the Orange Effect.
Thank you. Yes, so Orange Effect Foundation, 5 years old now, although my wife and I have been working on the cause for a long time. Basically, we help families who have children with speech disorders. Many of them are on the autism spectrum that can't afford speech therapy or technology, and we provide grants and scholarships so they can get that consistent speech therapy. And it's all about, if you identify a disorder, it's all about consistent, just like content marketing, frankly, consistent speech therapy over a long period of time. And we saw the effects that it had on our oldest son, Joshua, who's now 17 and looking at colleges, and he's doing fantastic. But if he wouldn't have got that early intervention speech therapy, I don't know. He wouldn't have been able to communicate like he can, and that was the frustration for him as a child, is we couldn't understand him, and he was very frustrated. And it doesn't have to be that way, but if a family is trying to decide between, should I feed my family or get speech therapy, they're going to choose food. They're going to choose survival. So we want to be that organization that helps them provide speech therapy. And right now, I think 180 kids in 28 states that we provided funding for, and it's just
really,
it's great, but we have so much work to do, and so we're trying to fund 60 kids right now for the next few months.
All right, so how can we find out more about the Orange Effect, and how can we get involved? So how can somebody's just hearing about this now. So how can we say, look, I want to be part of changing kids' lives? So how do we do that?
It's funny because just today we just launched this program. If you go to bit.ly.com/OEF60, /OEF60, or you can go to theorangeeffect.org. But the OEF60 short link will take you to the video and tell everybody about what we're doing and how we're trying to fund 60 children for the next year. And thank you very much. And it's amazing. There's so much money going into, especially great organizations like Autism Speaks and other things, but they mostly focus on research and advocacy.
Right.
And what do you do about the kids that need speech therapy now? And there's not enough organizations like Orange Effect doing that. So I hope more of them happen, or we get more funding. Yeah,
and part of that's just understanding the impact that early coaching can have early in their life.
2 to 7. Yeah. Ages 2 to 7 are so critical. And Joshua started at age 2. So when we went into an appointment with the doctor and they tested Joshua, he was almost exactly 2 years, and they said, I'm sorry, Joshua will never go to a regular school. He'll never communicate like other kids. And as parents, we're devastated. We don't know anything about this thing. And luckily, my wife Pam was like, well, that ain't gonna work. We're gonna get him into speech and play therapy right now. Yeah. And 5 days a week. He was in therapy sometimes multiple times a day, and thank God
Yeah.
it all worked out. But
Yeah.
a lot of kids don't get that opportunity,
Right.
so we're trying to fill the gap.
Yeah. Well, good deal, man. Well,
Yeah.
blessings to you on that program, brother.
thank you.
Hey, thanks for being with. Thanks for stopping by Content Marketing World.
This hasn't been as horrible as I thought it would be. I'd love to come back next year.
All right. Well, I'm not making any commitments. I can't make any commitments, but we'll consider you. Okay. You fill out an application. We'll get it.
Okay,
Doris,
good.
can you
I
get him
wanna
an
be-
application?
I want to be on the list.
We got you,
Thanks.
brother. Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Blessings
Tim.
to you, dude.
Appreciate it.
All right.
You got it.